People say, I'm going to sleep now, as if it were nothing. But it's really a bizarre activity. For the next several hours while the sun is gone, I'm going to become unconscious, temporarily losing command over everything I know and understand. When the sun returns, I will resume my life. If you didn't know what sleep was, and you had only seen it in a science fiction movie, you would think it was weird and tell all your friends about the movie you'd seen. They had these people, and they would walk around all day and be okay, and then once a day, usually after dark, they would lie down on these special platforms and become unconscious. They would stop functioning almost completely, except deep in their minds they would have adventures and experiences that were completely impossible in real life. As they lay there, completely vulnerable to their enemies, their only movements were to occasionally shift from one position to another, or if one of the mind adventures got too real, they would sit up and scream and be glad they weren't unconscious anymore. Then they would drink a lot of coffee. So, the next time you see someone sleeping, make believe you're in a science fiction movie and whisper, "The creature is regenerating itself." George Carlin. Welcome to The Lost Traveler. I am your host, Henry Cameron Allen. And today we have a very special guest, Mag Secretario, who is a personal energy and potential coach. And he works with other life coaches around the world. He specializes in women's health. He's also a global life skills ambassador and the founder of GoodLifeSleep.com. Welcome, Mag, to The Lost Traveler.
Hi, Henry. Thank you so much.
It's so great to have you.
It's my pleasure, and it's an honor to be here with you.
Thanks so much. Well, I am so excited to have you because, as I mentioned to you earlier, so many people listening to this podcast from all over the world, 7 or 8, 9 countries now. There's a common thread among them, and they're all talking about sleep. They're all talking about the fact that they are surprisingly so exhausted and can't fall asleep, or when they do fall asleep, it's not good sleep. It's restless. It's fraught with horrible nightmares and bizarre dreams. Have you heard about this too, and your work with Good Life Sleep, and have you experienced this as well?
I have, yes, to both. I have experienced some restless nights. And I've certainly heard of many, many people who are not sleeping well. And it's understandable. We live in a time of uncertainty, lots of fear and anxiety. And more than ever, I think people are conscious now of their sleep and their health. So if there was a positive light that comes out of this, I think people will make health a higher priority. At least that's what I hope.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it's really, in a way, such a gift to have the opportunity universally as humanity to take a half step back and to reevaluate our lives and our situations, the way we treat one another. But it all begins with the way we treat ourselves, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Self-care is the starting point. And this particular time, it's more challenging than ever. We have the opportunity, but I believe people are a little bit lost in that way. What to do with themselves, what to do with their own self-care.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are turning to alcohol, I see, to sort of numb themselves during this time and to have a little more fun with it, maybe.
Yes, yes.
And food as well. We know that mental health starts in the gut, and and I hear a lot of friends who are talking about gaining a lot of weight during this period of time, and turning to comfort foods, what we call comfort foods, which in the end aren't really comforting.
Yes,
And of
yes,
course, that affects sleep, doesn't it?
yes. And it's unfortunate that people sometimes think that, they can make up for lost sleep, which isn't exactly true. So, yeah, I believe that once we are able to learn more about how to care for ourselves, starting with sleep, um, things can get just a little bit better, and it can spiral, hopefully, upwards instead of downwards.
Talk a little bit more about that concept of catching up on lost sleep. What happens when a person of any age, because I see it in children through senior, what happens when a person doesn't get an adequate amount of sleep? What's going on physiologically?
Yes, physiologically, there are a lot of our body systems that rely on sleep. Um, First of all, our brain um, is impacted immediately. So, for example, one night of not sleeping, we might already be experiencing some fogginess. Decision making is not quite clear. Judgment. Um, all these sort of things are impacted immediately, and so I always have called sleep as the foundation to all health, because without enough sleep, we may decide not to exercise. We might decide to eat the wrong foods, and we're not always at fault, because our body is telling us, for example, when we're not sleeping enough, we need energy. So they'll grab whatever is um, easily available, such as carbohydrates. And so it impacts us physiologically as well as mentally, and even impacts our emotional health. So it impacts every system in our body that way. And
I know I read a study recently that alluded to what seems to be a fact that the human body actually doesn't require much in the way of outside carbohydrate sources, that our liver produces enough, just precisely enough, to give us the sugar to keep our systems going. That's so fascinating to me. Uh, I've been really looking at that this past couple of years. Um, at my own way of eating, and as you know, I've been traveling the world over the last 2 years, and I noticed a distinct difference eating well in the US and eating well in every other country that I've been to. The kind of food hasn't changed very much, but the quality of the nutrition in the food
yes,
is remarkably different. And how can that not affect your circadian rhythm?
yes. There's even and you know this very well, there's even a cultural layer to this all, because
Right.
as we know, Americans, sadly, to make a pun out of it, right? The standard American diet is not only, not quite the best diet, but it's also how we eat. And we're eating on the run in America. We're eating under stress, and many people, around the world are probably eating under a little bit more stress. So, life in Spain and France, they know how to enjoy their meals. So they might eat the same or similar foods, but they're enjoying it at a leisure pace. They're enjoying it with the company of others, and we assimilate, nutrition differently. So yeah, it's not only what we eat and how we sleep, but the quality, the quantity and the quality matter.
And we're going to take a brief pause right now to hear a word from our sponsor.
And it's hard sometimes when you're in a culture like America that, and I should say North America,
Yes.
because it includes Canada and Mexico as well. You may think that you're limited in what you're able to get. I've done nutritional consultations with groups in the past, and some of the participants actually got a bit up in arms because they equate healthy eating to very expensive eating.
Right.
Yes. Cheap food, quote unquote food, is what's affordable, especially right now when people are losing a significant or maybe even all of their income. Right? They have to think about economizing, and how does one do that in a time like this? How do we meet this time to improve because I think we're all thinking of that. We're all thinking of improving our health. We're all thinking of improving our sleep. I imagine everybody deep down wants to, but there are a whole lot of reasons why they feel they can't.
Yes, I would agree completely. It's a difficult challenge in that I believe that almost worse than this virus is fear. And fear is impacting us. It's keeping us from sleeping and being well. And if we can just get beyond that, if we just learn some maybe new life skills about how we manage stress, anxiety, and uncertainty, I believe sleep is a part of the answer. If we sleep well, we sleep enough for ourselves, then we're able to make better decisions, and we're able to alleviate some of the fear, and maybe that impacts how we might move forward through this all. But having good enough rest will help settle all these things. It's even with the nightmares that people might experience. If we can sleep well enough, I believe that we can find peace in that. Sleep is healing that way.
Truly. And I think if we're under rested, then we wake up stressed. And people, when I think it was maybe a dozen years ago, I actually threw my alarm clock out my third story window. There was nobody down below. I made sure. And smashed it to bits on the pavement below, because there was nothing worse to me than waking up to the screeching sound of an alarm clock. Already people are starting their day with stress.
Yes. And
being jerked awake by this alarm. And of course, that's not everywhere. Not everybody in the world has an alarm clock. Some people have roosters. Yes. Here in Spain, we have roosters.
Yes.
They wake us up a little more gently, but still it's an alarm of sorts. So let's talk in terms of practicality, right? And again, these skills are not uniquely first world problems or issues or skills that need to be cultivated and developed right now. The whole world, every socioeconomic strata is struggling to figure out where we are, how we meet the now, and how we meet the upcoming future that we have no idea what's going to happen, right? So yes. Universally speaking, okay, what are the top things that everybody can do to prepare themselves for adequate rest so that they can make better decisions about the rest of their self-care and the care of others.
Yes. Well, I I would say that if we learn to be more grateful for the things that we do have, I think it would be a wonderful way to end the day and to begin the day. So people have heard many things about sleep hygiene. I like to use the word ritual or spiritual in that we want a type of consistency, whether it's going and preparing for bed or waking up. And if we add gratitude into that, I think it just puts some things in perspective, because I know it's really very, very difficult time. But if we can find those things that we're grateful for, that will begin the ritual for sleep. And as I mentioned, consistency, this is really important and a very difficult thing to do. But if we can figure out the amount of hours that we need, and everybody's different. So some people are just fine with 7 hours. Some people might need 9 hours. This is the recommendation, generally 7 to 9 hours. But if we figure out what's best for us, and the best way to know that is, how do you feel the next day if you are sleeping 7 hours or 8 hours? And if you are fine throughout the day, maybe that's enough. But in some countries, like in Spain, we have the culture of siesta, and a midday nap is great, as long as it's, I believe, before 2 p.m., because
Right.
any later than that can cause, trouble getting to bed at an earlier date, earlier time. But
Being in Spain right now, I've noticed that, and everything shuts down here at 2 o'clock.
yes,
So people are taking their siesta after 2 o'clock,
yes,
and that means that their supper time is much later
yes,
as well. And that's going to lead to a later period of digestion, right? Which is also a sleep disruptor, I
yes,
believe.
yes.
And, and so perhaps that adds to the tension, in a big way.
And we'll be right back right after this. Introducing the newest member of the Vox Life family. REM Patch with OST, optimized sleep technology, balances your REM and deep sleep stages to encourage rejuvenation of the mind and body. No drugs, no hangover, just a great night's sleep. Visit dianedinkmeyer.voxlife.com for information. That's dianedinkmeyer.voxlife.com. All Vox Life products are available in the UK, Canada, and the USA. Your generous sponsorship and individual support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a charitable project under the fiscal sponsorship of United Charitable, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The Lost Travelers Club focuses primarily on the needs of parents who have outlived their beloved children. We recently launched our new Brain Candy Project wing, providing art supplies to children still struggling with critical or terminal health-related conditions. We hope to raise enough funds to launch Brain Candy, an arts and literature magazine created by and for these young people. Find out more at www.braincandy.online. Thank you.
It's funny you should mention gratitude first, because that's been my belief as well. When I was raising my son, Cameron, since he could understand language, we instilled a practice in our home where every single morning before we would allow ourselves to even open our eyes to face the day. You know, when the sun is coming up and you're coming awake and you're still a little foggy and your eyes aren't quite open, you might have cracked them open a little bit, but you're still sort of in that place of sort of quiet awakening. Um, we counted everything that we were grateful for before we would allow ourselves to open our eyes.
Wow.
This was a practice in our home. Um, I think teaching children at a young age in their foundation years this idea of a waking ritual and a bedtime ritual is so vitally important. Sometimes that list would be very short. It would only take 15 minutes. Sometimes it would take an hour.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And what a beautiful, blissful thing. Usually it was on the weekends. Thank goodness that it was, you're at the end of the week, you're feeling more grateful. But you can leisurely roll out of bed without having to jump out.
Yes.
Very cool.
It's I believe and borrow from one of my favorite sleep psychologists and dream specialists, Dr. Ruben Nyman, who calls it a soft landing and a soft takeoff, and it's just a wonderful imagery of kind of gently landing into sleep, because you and I grew up in a time when we used to say, I'm just going to crash, right? And
Going to crash and up and at 'em.
yes, exactly. So I think
Yeah.
that's such a wonderful practice that you had with your son, to practice gratitude, and especially at that moment of just waking consciousness. I think that's a beautiful time. That is a time I'm very aware of, and again, Dr. Ruben Nyman talks about that quite a bit. And this is the half wake, half dream state, and it's a wonderful time to start gratitude with, um, and it sets the tone for the rest of the day, hopefully. Um, but it's a wonderful thing to teach our children. Wow, that's
I
incredible.
found that to be I found that to be the case. It affected the way that we met the world,
Yes.
right? Because we reflected on all the things that we're grateful for, and you face the day with this feeling of just lovely thankfulness and it's like someone took a squeegee across the world and things seem a bit clearer. I think
Yes.
when you start your day that way and then ending your day that way as well. One of the challenges I know I've had in the past, and I know a lot of other people do as well, is the softness or the comfort of their actual sleeping space
Yes.
and their bed. Not everyone can afford a memory foam or a smart, tilting, inflating, deflating bed. What do you suggest people do if they don't have a comfortable place to sleep? How can they make it more comfortable for their ideal restful sleep?
Yes, that's a great question, because comfort is very subjective. But it is important to sleep, because as many, say, chiropractic doctors would ask, is, if you sleep in a comfortable bed or mattress, um, and if you don't have access to that, that could be very challenging. But people are very adaptable. So whatever situation someone might be in, if they find comfort, whether it's lying on the floor on a mat, which, a lot of my ancestors and even relatives, distant relatives, still do in the Philippines.
Oh,
That's all they have is a mat on the floor. Whatever is their comfort level. The important thing is to keep the spine as straight as possible. Um, Otherwise, it can cause pain in different parts of the body. But if you do have access to a comfortable mattress, it doesn't have to be um, so expensive. But as long as you're comfortable, um, that's a great starting point. It also means what the environment of the bedroom might be. So bedrooms always want to be quiet and dark and cool. That is the
Yeah.
ideal environment for sleep. And I would even take it further in that if you are, say, taking a trip, um, you're taking a trip somewhere, you're dressing the part. So you might, it used to be that if you were flying business class, you might dress up for the part and you get this wonderful seat and all that. Um, and I would say you can apply that to your bedtime ritual. So, meaning you don't um, go to bed with the same clothes that you go to the gym with. You might
Right.
take it a step further and have something special just for bed, so that everything you do in the bedroom is very specific to being comfortable and sleeping well, and make it a special place, the bedroom, a special place for only two things, and it's not work. So um, treat sleeping and the bedroom environment this way, maximize your comfort, and I think that would be a great couple of steps to get there.
I know I've done this in the past, and I have friends as well who have been in situations where they don't have the most comfortable situation. Um, Look around your house and see what you have that can add to the comfort of your sleep, and try it out. Take a pillowcase and stuff it with clean clothes folded,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Um, or take a few extra blankets if you have them, or towels, and put them on top of your mattress, or if you don't have a mattress, on the floor. It's called, in the South, they call it a pallet, where you put a stack of blankets and
Ah.
stuff on the floor, and it makes for a softer sleeping space. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned sleep hygiene.
Yes.
I know some people prefer to sleep in pajamas or nightgowns. Some people in their t-shirt and underpants, and some people just wearing nothing.
Yes.
What do you think about all that? How does that contribute to better sleep, sleep hygiene? And what do you mean by sleep hygiene?
Yes. Um, that word is very interesting because it feels like hygiene. Maybe there's some things that are unclean, and so I
Right.
try to use the word a ritual instead. But the idea is the same. The idea is that we must practice certain things to help us to create the environment, a conducive environment for sleep. So, like I mentioned, cool, dark, quiet, that's necessary for good sleep. And so is our body temperature. So, our body temperature actually wants to uh, cool down a few degrees inside our body. That triggers the production of melatonin, and that triggers, the start of sleep, or the ability to sleep. It doesn't make us sleep, but it helps us. So, and we all know this from experience, if we're in a hot, overheated flight, it's difficult to sleep. So, for some people, that might mean sleeping without any clothes, and that's I prefer that over uh, overdressing. Um, I don't have anything fancy. I don't sleep with much on at all. So for
Yeah.
me, that's comfortable. The sheets, this is a matter of preference again. If they're cool and comfortable, some people have sensitivity to synthetic materials, for example. So whatever you find that you're comfortable with, um, and your body is slightly on the cool side, that's okay, as long as you don't wake up, feeling so chilled, and you have a cover that you could always throw on in the middle of the night if you need. But yes, it's
Right.
important to how we dress and or not dress, that can help sleep.
Comfort is all, and as you say, it's going to be different for everybody, right?
Yes.
Um, what's your ritual?
My ritual is, we stop working around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We stop working on computers or devices. So we spend a little family time watching something on television. In our particular case, my wife and I are caregivers to my elderly parents, and but not to any extreme. So in the evening, it's just my father and my wife and I, and we might watch something entertaining. Now, my father likes a lot of action films. If I were had the choice, I wouldn't always choose um, an active, stimulating type of film before bed. But if you could, let if that doesn't bother you, that's fine. If it's just pure entertainment and it doesn't bother you, it doesn't cause any weird dreams, that's fine.
Mhm.
But the idea is to slowly prepare for sleep by, you know, relaxing, no technology or very little technology, certainly not looking at devices, dimming the lights, winding things down slowly, and then so that we try to aim for 9:30 going up to the bedroom. We might spend. My wife likes to listen to meditations in the evening and in the morning, so she might listen to something from her phone. Now, I have my phone nearby, but I shut it off every night, so it doesn't bother me. Some people will go to the extreme of not having their phone in the bedroom, which is fine. The idea is not to have it charging nearby, because there's this other idea that EMFs or electromagnetic frequencies can impact sleep. I really try to keep anything electronic out of the bedroom. No computers, no television, no laptops in the bedroom at all. We might have our phone, and that's it. And then I just try to, um, again, practice gratitude before bed, and hopefully I'm asleep by 10:30. That's been my routine over the recent years, I would say. Um,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like this before. And like many people, some, this is their most active time of the day is before bed and at night.
Well, and being the time that it is in history, where so much of our lives I wouldn't say in every country, because certainly there are places in the world that don't have the level of technology that we do in the West.
Yes.
Yes. I think it's important to state that. And I wonder if there's ever been a study done on quality of sleep in those places that have much less technology and versus places in the West. But a little trick that I have found, because it's so hard. You can lead a horse to water,
Yes.
but you can't make them turn off their technology.
Yes.
So I'm guilty of that myself, and because there's always something interesting. We always want to know what's going on, who said what, what's even just to bubble gum for the brain, just to disconnect. Sometimes we need to connect. And a little trick that I do that actually helps me is to go into the settings of my. I don't watch television, but I did it when I had a television, on my laptop and on my phone. You can go into the settings, and there's either an eye strain mode where it reduces the blue light,
Yes.
that's emitted from your screen, whether it's your phone, your laptop, or your television. And it makes it kind of an amber
Yes.
tinge. And what I have found personally is that that minor thing, and you don't know, at first you notice it. It's like everything's golden.
Yeah.
But then it goes away and everything looks normal. And I've set these modes permanently on my devices because not only does it help me immeasurably, it helps me fall asleep, it helps me from getting eye fatigue during the entire day as well.
Right. Yes. Yes, that makes sense, though, Henry, because as we've heard, it's the blue light that triggers some problems. And because we're wired to light as human beings and many other animals also, we're wired to the sunlight. So with our devices, the blue light is stimulating glands in our brain that say it's still daylight, it's not time for bed yet. So the longer we have devices on with the blue light, the longer it will take to produce melatonin to enable us to sleep. But you're right, these devices nowadays do have a mode, a setting that can change the color temperature of the devices. And like you said, the orange light, the amber color is the effect on our brain is reduced. So it can help. And I practice this as well. I have those installed into my laptop and into my phone. So if that helps and people have that, certainly they should use that. But it's not an excuse to be taking it to bed all night. But it does help. The idea is that, though, we are so led by technology these days, it's a very difficult thing to let it go. So it could be a gradual thing for some.
It's a culture, isn't it? And it's what we teach our children. It's what we show our children.
Yes.
And there are people, I think, especially in rural environments or places that are more remote that may not have, internet connection or wireless or even cable in some cases. I think those folks are going to have an easier time diminishing. So I say, realistically, most people in the West especially are not going to be turning off their cell phones or leaving them out, especially now when there's such concern about people being sick. I don't want to miss a call in the middle of the night if somebody, is ill or something. So if there's an emergency,
Yes.
I know that adds stress. And knowing that the phone is there, knowing that you can be there immediately for somebody, I think is both a blessing and a curse. I remember the days of the landline where, if you weren't home and you didn't have a mobile phone and somebody needed to get a hold of you, please leave your name and number. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Beep.
Yes.
Right. And you check your messages throughout the day. And if there's an emergency, you'll get there eventually. Maybe we can get back to that. Maybe we can't. So realistically, I think, if you can minimize it at the very beginning of the day and at the very end of the day so that you can come awake, you minimize your technology use, then that's ideal. That's great.
Yes.
21st century life skills warrant 21st century education. Every human being is born into a classroom, each of us given the same homework, the same core assignments. Personal care skills, emotional literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy. These and other essential life skills are unique, learned and used by each of us every day of our lives. Indeed, they are the common thread in our humanity, core to individuals and the communities they construct, surviving and thriving. raising the bar on life skills education for all. This is the mission of Parenting 2.0. Visit www.parenting2pt0.org for more information.
You know, light, like sound, is a frequency.
Yes.
And the reason this blue light is such an important part of the conversation, you look up at the sky during the day, and what do we see? We see the frequency of blue,
Yes.
right? That's what we're attuned to, what you're talking about, animals and humans, which we are animals
Yes.
too, but plants as well. There are flowers that open to that blue light,
Yes.
right? And the light frequencies that we don't even see emitting from the world around us, but also from our devices. There are frequencies we don't see that are hitting us in ways that we have no idea. And so to make that adjustment, think about the end of the day, sunset, when everything starts to glow, that amber
Yes.
color, and we start to prepare to calm down and have a good meal and be with our families and quiet at home, and then eventually fall asleep when the sun goes down. That's why.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about that frequency. And I think it's important to say it and to teach it, not only to children, but to inner children who never got that lesson.
Yes.
Before.
Yes. That's a very good point. We are not taught certain life skills, right? We learned about sleep from our parents, and our parents learned from theirs. We never learned it in school. We didn't learn about it online and in a course so much. This could be changing, but yeah, I think as we become more aware of these things, and maybe this, there is a silver lining in this crisis, and in that it could teach us something about better care for ourselves, then let's help people with that lesson, and let's take better care of ourselves and each other. I think that's a wonderful thing, what you're doing with your work. It's great.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And speaking of looking for sleep remedies and self-care online, you should all visit goodlifesleep.com, which is Mag's website. I will have a hyperlink in the description of this episode, as well as on Mag Secretario's name. If you click his name, then that'll take you to goodlifesleep.com. Mag, as we wrap up this wonderful time together, what would you say are 3 takeaways from this conversation, or maybe something we haven't covered yet, that people can take into their lives, maybe a little better than at the beginning of the episode?
Great question. 3 things. Well, I think there's something very powerful about gratitude that I mentioned earlier. It's something that I've learned even more recently, because I had been going through this idea of forgiveness. And forgiveness is a very powerful tool to heal. But what someone shared with me was even more powerful, in that sometimes we might get stuck in the loop of forgiveness, and this implies someone or something was done to us, maybe something wrong was done. Instead, use gratitude. So I think number one would be being grateful for all the things that we have, is so powerful in everything we do. And the other thing might be probably around self-care. Everyone knows what makes them happy, what's best for them, and then if they don't know, they can find help these days in this. So whatever it is that we need to take better care of ourselves with that. That will have impact on everyone around us. So I think that's an important thing. So gratitude, self-care, and maybe thirdly, I think that I call it energy, and you alluded to it as far as vibration. That there's something about the energy that we bring to our day, and people might think of it as a kind of the energy from our physiology, but there's also the energy from the universe, and depending on our belief system, the energy that our essence, our life energy. And I think it's important to understand this so that we could use it. So um, I always say that it's more important to manage our energy than our time, because time is fixed, it's finite, it's the same for everyone. But energy is infinite. So if we learn how to tap into our energy and what that means for us, I think that's a powerful tool that can help us get through this crisis and beyond. So those three things, I think, Henry.
That's wonderful. And you know, every spiritual path, every belief system has some guidance on all three of those things. So it doesn't matter one's cultural background. It doesn't matter how much money one has in the bank or what they believe in or who they believe in. Right? These are all truths that are inherent to our humanity. And so for practical skills, go to the people that you most respect. We are here offering up what we can. And again, if you go to goodlifesleep.com, Mag can address practical skills that you can develop for this time and for the future. If you have other questions, or if you have maybe suggestions for future episodes, then go to my website as well, henryallen.org, and leave me a message there. Speaking of gratitude, Mag, I am so grateful to spend this time with you, my friend. And let's do it again, shall we?
Thank you so much, Henry. And I'm happy to share more time with you. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Lost Traveler with Henry Cameron Allen. For more information, please visit www.henryallen.org. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's all keep striving for a better world. Thank you.